4 months. Maybe closer to 5 months. Nobody's totally sure. Nobody was even watching closely enough at the time to actually know for certain. That's genuinely how long Meghan's actual engagement ring has been missing from public view. Not lost, not stolen, just gone from her finger. No premieres, no public appearances, not one photo, anywhere, for months. Think about that for a second. Months! That's an entire season of the calendar, summer into fall. And in all that time, not one photographer, not one fan account, not one paparazzi shot catches it back on her hand.
Meghan has not been wearing her engagement ring in public for at least 5 days. Now, Yahoo is actually reporting she hasn't been wearing it in public for 4 months. But most news outlets only realized this about 5 days ago, which tells us a lot about the waning interest in Meghan Markle in the marketplace.
And here's the thing. This isn't some random ring. Harry designed it himself. A 3-carat diamond from Botswana, where they fell in love camping under the stars. 2 smaller stones flanking it, taken straight from Diana's own jewelry collection. Worth something reportedly in the region of $140,000, give or take, depending on which jewelry expert you ask. It's genuinely the single most symbolic, most emotionally loaded piece of jewelry in the entire Sussex story, arguably more than the wedding ring itself. And it just vanished. For months. Before anyone even noticed. But somebody, eventually, actually did notice. And when that specific story finally broke into public view, it slammed straight into a completely different one that had been quietly building.
Finally heard from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in regards to Lady Colin Campbell's bombshell reporting involving Prince Harry, a certain mystery female friend in Montecito, and also a missing engagement ring.
Lady Colin Campbell, a woman who's been writing about the royals for close to 50 years, dropped a bombshell. A mystery woman in Montecito. Text messages Meghan allegedly found on Harry's phone. The kind of claim that would normally light the internet on fire. The Sussex camp responded fast and reportedly through fairly specific channels. An Australian magazine called New Idea, of all places. The headline basically said, in so many words, United Front. Absolutely nothing to see here, please move along. Except buried right there in that exact same article sat a small detail that quietly undid the entire carefully constructed thing. Stick with me here through the whole thing, because once you actually see what I'm about to walk you through step by step, you genuinely won't be able to unsee it afterward.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's upset over what they describe as unfounded affair claims. They report thus standing united against vicious rumours. This from the magazine. There is, of course, no truth to Lady Colin Campbell's rumours, and the couple remain a united front. An insider telling the magazine, Harry's fed up with these outrageous claims.
Okay, let's slow down and actually walk through this whole thing properly, step by step, because I don't want to just throw claims at you without context. Let's start with the claim itself, because who's making it actually matters here. Lady Colin Campbell isn't some random account posting at 2 a.m. She's written multiple best-selling royal biographies. Her Diana book got serialized internationally back in the early 90s. She's been doing this since before most of us had internet at home. So when she says her information came from named, verified sources inside American political circles, that's not nothing. That's a different weight class entirely from an anonymous tip. Now, before we go any further into all of this, I genuinely want to be really clear and upfront about something important right here. These are still claims. Unverified. One source, however credible she considers herself. And here's a fair point worth sitting with. In a place like Montecito, where literally everyone carries a phone with a camera, there's not a single photo of Harry with this supposedly mystery woman. That absence is worth noting too. Claims without solid, verifiable evidence are still just claims without evidence at the end of the day. That doesn't magically change no matter who happens to be making them, however credible. But claims coming from someone with a genuine 50-year track record land in a completely different category than claims from a random anonymous tipster. And that specific difference is exactly why what happened next matters as much as it actually does. Because the real story here isn't the rumor, it's how the Sussex camp responded to it. New Idea ran the piece.
I mean, New Idea is a joke. I mean, I couldn't. In fact, ironically enough, they paid a very handsome amount of money to serialize my first Diana book, which would have been in 1992. So I suppose I have a little bit of affection for them when I think of all of that wonderful, filthy lucre.
Anonymous insider, the kind of source that in Sussex world almost always means someone who was specifically told what to say and how exactly to say it. The quote was standard crisis PR. Deny everything, Project Unity, move on. There is, of course, no truth to these rumors. Classic. The couple remain a united front. Textbook. Then, same article. Same source. Everything falls apart. The insider mentioned that Harry and Meghan actually disagree on how to handle it. Meghan wanted to fight. Sue. Shut it down completely. Harry apparently was the one holding her back, reportedly reminding her that suing isn't really the royal way.
All I can tell you is, first of all, Meghan Markle can't sue me for anything because I'd never said anything about her that was untrue or defamatory or unfair or that somehow wasn't pegged in her own conduct.
Just sit with that for a second because it genuinely takes a moment to land properly. Harry, the man who sued the Mirror, the Sun, the Mail, the Home Office, the man who spent literal years in courtrooms suing basically anyone who wrote something he didn't like, telling his wife that legal action isn't the royal way. The irony practically writes itself. You couldn't script it better. But here's what actually matters. Nobody dug that quote out of them. No clever journalist tricked it loose. Their own person, speaking on their behalf, just said it. In the middle of a statement meant to project total unity. That's not how strength works. That's how cracks get announced by the people standing right on top of them, without even realizing they're doing it. And once you notice this pattern, you start seeing it everywhere in how public figures handle a crisis. And there's a pattern here worth knowing, because it shows up everywhere once you start looking.
I'm not afraid of Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle is a third-rate, shall we say, greaser and bully. I'm used to first-rate bullies. So she doesn't frighten me in the slightest. And if she tried anything on for size, I'd crush her the way an elephant crushes an ant.
When a couple issues a public statement specifically declaring they're united, that's usually because they're not. Happy couples don't hold press conferences about being happy. Nobody announces stability unless stability's already in question. If Harry and Meghan truly didn't care about this story, the response would have been silence. Nothing. Let it die on its own. Instead, they briefed a magazine, gave quotes, described their feelings, detailed their disagreements, all under a headline about being united, a phrase that, in PR circles, has basically become code for exactly the opposite. Now compare that entire approach to how William and Catherine actually handle it. When bad press hits, they say nothing. No briefings, no insider quotes about their emotional state. The silence itself is the message. This is beneath us. The Sussexes, by contrast, genuinely can't seem to manage that same kind of restraint.
If they think that they have an action that they can bring against me, bring it on. I'll see them in a court of law.
Every single response, however carefully worded, keeps the story alive for another full news cycle. Their instinct to control it is exactly what won't let it die. Which brings us back to the ring. And this is genuinely where things stop feeling like coincidence and start feeling like a pattern. Because rings don't fall off by accident. Not this ring, not this woman. Think about who Meghan actually is. Publicly. A woman who studied Diana's visual language like it's a doctoral thesis. Same swimsuit style Diana wore. Filmed herself in a Paris car. Echoing that final night. Posted her kids walking toward Diana's grave at Althorpe. Every visual choice. Deliberate. Loaded. Meant to say something words can't quite carry. This isn't a woman who accidentally leaves a $140,000 ring in a drawer for 5 months. This is a woman who once had her assistant announce her arrival to a restaurant before she'd even walked through the door. Details matter to her, every single detail. And there's precedent here, real precedent, from the exact playbook Meghan's reportedly been studying for years.
Isn't it? If they're trying to catch out a journalist or if they're trying to catch out an enemy commentator, it's like, let's give them a false story and try and make them look stupid. But you are convinced that's not the case.
Absolutely. Of course
Let me take you back 3 decades. It's 1992. Diana sits in front of the Taj Mahal, the world's most famous monument to romantic love, completely alone, the most photographed woman alive, and not a single other person beside her. Charles was supposed to be there. He wasn't. Diana said nothing. She didn't have to say a word. The image said everything on its own. And it's still one of the most reproduced photographs of the entire 20th century. The palace was denying trouble in the marriage. That one photo told the real story to the entire planet, without a single word.
In the nearly 50 years that I have been in the public eye commenting and writing on certain matters, I have never once been found to have been inaccurate or lacking.
Now, I'm not saying a missing ring carries the same weight as that photograph. Taj Mahal was witnessed live by hundreds of millions. The missing ring went unnoticed for months. Different scale entirely. But the mechanics? Same. The visual language? Same. And the woman using it has spent years proving she knows exactly how that particular language works, down to the smallest detail. Wardrobe choices, camera angles, even the timing of a caption. Nothing about her public presence happens by accident, according to nearly everyone who's ever worked alongside her. If you're finding this interesting so far, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find breakdowns like this one.
And the idea that I was going to somehow be duped by some third-rate operator who constantly is wiping her nose because it's constantly dribbling and has a glass of champagne or wine in her hand on a daily basis.
Here's another layer worth adding, and it's the one that genuinely gave me pause when I first put it together. Timing. The ring disappeared during the exact window when the Sussex camp was, by their own insider's account, trying to rebuild bridges with King Charles. Think about that specific contradiction for a second. You're asking the king to forgive you, to open a door you slammed shut years ago. And at that exact moment, your wife stops wearing the ring containing his late wife's diamonds. Intentional or not, that's the kind of visual contradiction a palace built entirely on symbolism would notice instantly. Meanwhile, on the other side of this whole story, Lady Colin Campbell hasn't backed down an inch. She's publicly said she's not remotely afraid of Meghan. 50 years covering the royals, she says, and never once found to be inaccurate.
I think she's onto something that a lot of people have overlooked, because Meghan has not been wearing her engagement ring for some time. And it's ironic that on the one hand, you have Maureen and people who are more in the know making the point that there's trouble in paradise. Then on the other hand, you have people who are less in the know saying, oh no, there's no trouble in paradise. Romeo and Juliet are about to run off to Reno and remarry.
She stands by her sources. She's even dismissed the theory that this was some kind of trap set by the Sussex camp to expose her. Said flatly she verified everything independently. Her actual words, reportedly, delivered with what sounds like zero hesitation. Bring it on. 2 words. No qualifiers, no walking it back. Whether the underlying claims are true or not, and again they remain unverified, a professional with that much reputation on the line staking it all publicly is a genuinely big deal. People generally don't invite lawsuits over information they know is fabricated. Which brings us to money. Because honestly, this is where everything, the ring, the claims, the response, all of it, starts connecting into something that should worry the Sussexes quite a bit more than they're probably letting on publicly.
She was saying non-verbally, the rumors are true. The palace may be denying them, but the rumors are true. My marriage is in deep, deep trouble.
Harry just lost his privacy case against the Daily Mail's publisher. Badly. Reports put his share of the resulting costs around $34 million. That's not a rounding error. That's the kind of number that reshapes an entire family's financial future. And it's landing on top of years of already shrinking commercial deals, not appearing in isolation. Netflix reportedly scaled things back. The cooking show got canceled after 2 seasons. The lifestyle brand generates more jokes than revenue at this point. Invictus is facing real sponsor questions. And now, on top of all that, there's a separate defamation case. Sentebale, the charity Harry co-founded in his mother's name, suing him directly. Trial not expected before late 2027. The same new idea insider dropped one more detail that barely got picked up anywhere in mainstream coverage. And it might be the most important line in the entire piece. Harry may not actually have the money to fight another legal battle right now. Full stop. Think about what that means. Even if Harry and Meghan wanted to sue over these affair claims, they might simply not be able to afford it. The threat of litigation, their signature weapon for years, might not be credible anymore. And when your biggest weapon stops working, every critic with a story gets a little bolder. This is the part of the Sussex story that rarely gets examined properly. For years, Harry and Meghan used courtrooms offensively. Sue the Mirror, sue the Mail, sue the Home Office. The implicit threat hung over every piece of coverage. Cross us, see you in court. That threat worked. Outlets softened. Sources stayed quiet. Nobody wanted to risk a lawsuit they couldn't win. But that strategy only survives if 2 things stay true. You keep winning, and you keep affording it. Harry stopped winning with the Mail case, and the money to keep fighting is visibly drying up. The chilling effect is thawing out. People who stayed silent for years are starting to talk. Lady Colin Campbell is publicly daring them to sue her. A charity founded in Diana's own name is suing Harry directly. Old allies are becoming adversaries. The hunted have become the hunters. And the exact weapons that once made Harry and Meghan feared, the threat, the deep pockets, the willingness to fight, are now slowly being turned right back around and pointed at them instead. There's something worth saying about Montecito itself here too, because honestly, the place matters more than most people realize when trying to understand this whole story. It's one of the most exclusive zip codes in America. Coastal, tucked against the Santa Ynez Mountains, roughly 90 miles from Los Angeles. Tech billionaires. Hollywood royalty. The Sussex property alone is reportedly worth around $14 million. Ocean views. Serious security. A bubble in every sense of the word. And bubbles distort things. Inside Montecito, it's easy to believe the brand is fine. The narrative is manageable. The right PR move fixes everything. Outside the bubble, the picture looks different. Shrinking deals, mounting legal bills, a missing ring, a magazine article that reveals more cracks than it papers over. When Harry left royal life back in 2020, he called his own family trapped, stuck inside an institution, unable to speak freely. He said he'd escaped. But look at where escaping actually led. A $34 million legal bill, a lawsuit from his mother's own charity, a wife reportedly wanting to sue everyone who criticizes her, a ring that vanished for months before anyone noticed, and a magazine quote that revealed the marriage's fault lines better than any tabloid rumor ever could. Meanwhile, William, the one Harry called trapped, hasn't sued anyone, hasn't briefed a single magazine, hasn't said one public word about his own marriage, hasn't taken his ring off, hasn't responded to a single one of the thousands of negative stories written about him since Harry left. He just wears the ring, does the work, says nothing. And that silence, the exact thing Harry once publicly described as a symptom of being trapped, of being unable to speak his truth, increasingly looks like the single most powerful move available to any public figure navigating a genuine storm. Silence sounds like confidence. Noise sounds like panic. Okay, let me push this one step further, because I genuinely think it's the real point buried under everything else we've walked through tonight. Harry spent years, the memoir, the Netflix series, the Oprah sit-down, insisting his family was trapped. He believed it. Maybe he still does. But trapped means you can't leave. Walls closing in. Exits blocked. Apply that definition to where Harry actually stands right now. He can't return to royal life without conditions Meghan reportedly won't accept. He can't stay in America without a pile of legal and financial crises hitting all at once. He can't sue his way out anymore. The money's thin and the last big case was a disaster. He can't silence critics, the fear factor's gone, and people are talking again. He can't really control Meghan's public choices, from Althorpe to Paris to the missing ring, because she seems to operate on instincts that clash directly with everything he was raised to practice. And he can't leave the marriage without detonating the entire brand that's built on their love story in the first place. That's what Trapped actually looks like, when you really break it down piece by piece. Not a palace full of rules and inherited duty. A house in Montecito where, according to nearly every angle you examine, every single direction leads to another wall. He told the world his family was trapped. Turns out he might have been describing himself the whole time without realizing it. And the timing could not possibly be worse. That same insider revealed one more thing. The couple is reportedly trying to ingratiate themselves back with King Charles. Rebuild things. Find some path back into the family's good graces. Now hold that next to everything else. Trying to win the king back while dealing with affair rumors, a missing ring, a $34 million bill, a lawsuit from Diana's own charity, a canceled show, and a wife reportedly wanting to sue a royal biographer. The insider even mentioned real tension between Harry and Meghan after the Althorpe photos went up. The images that reportedly upset William deeply. Just picture for a second what Charles actually sees when he looks honestly at all of this laid out in front of him. A son who left, attacked the family publicly, published a memoir full of private conversations, now asking to come back in, while his wife posts from Diana's grave and his finances collapse under failed lawsuits. The idea that palace doors swing open under those exact conditions requires a level of optimism bordering on delusion. So genuinely, step all the way back for a second. Look at the whole picture here, not just the individual pieces scattered across headlines. Lady Colin Campbell, 50 years in, makes an explosive claim. The Sussex response accidentally reveals a real disagreement about strategy. The ring containing Diana's diamonds vanishes for months, echoing the exact kind of silent messaging Diana herself pioneered. The legal war chest is basically empty after a catastrophic loss. A second lawsuit looms. And through all of it, reconciliation with Charles gets harder with every new headline they generate themselves. They say united. Their own source says they disagree. They say strong. The evidence says stretched thin, right to the breaking point. And here's the actual pattern underneath all of it. Once you actually manage to see it laid out clearly, start to finish. Crisis hits, silence first, while they assess. Then a carefully placed story. Always anonymous insiders. Always the language of unity. Then, buried in that same story, a contradiction slips out. A disagreement nobody meant to reveal. Then a visual signal from Meghan. An outfit. A post. An absence of jewelry that says what words are avoiding. And then, before the last crisis even settles, the next one starts. Diana sat alone at the Taj Mahal and didn't say a word. The photo did all the talking. Meghan has studied that exact playbook for years. The wardrobe, the gestures, the visual language. And now the ring carrying Diana's own diamonds has quietly disappeared, for months, with zero explanation. Maybe it's being cleaned professionally somewhere. Maybe it's simply being resized for comfort. Maybe, honestly, it's genuinely nothing at all. And we're all reading way too much into a piece of jewelry. But Meghan Markle doesn't really do nothing. Everyone who's ever worked with her says the same thing. She's one of the most deliberate, calculated public figures of her entire generation. Every outfit's a message. Every photo's a statement. Every absence, a choice. The ring's off. That much, at least, isn't in dispute. The insider confirmed the disagreement, right there in black and white. The legal bills keep climbing, month over month, with no sign of slowing down. And somewhere behind those Montecito gates, a prince who told the world he'd escaped seems to be discovering his new walls are closing in faster than the old ones ever did. So what do you actually think, honestly? Is the missing ring a genuine, deliberate signal? In that exact same way, Diana once used silence and imagery to say what words couldn't decades ago. Or are we all just collectively reading way too much into an object that might simply be sitting in a jeweler's drawer somewhere, waiting quietly to be picked up? And that specific disagreement over strategy buried right there inside the new idea piece. Do you think that's a genuinely bigger crack than it initially looks? Or is it just an accidental slip? Sloppy quoting from a journalist who didn't fully realize what they'd actually caught on the record? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm honestly, genuinely curious where people actually land on this one, because I've gone back and forth on it myself more than once while putting this together. And if stories like this genuinely keep you hooked from start to finish, go ahead and subscribe to Palace Insider right now so you don't miss whatever comes next in this saga. And if this particular video managed to keep you watching all the way through to the very end here, drop a like on your way out. It actually helps this channel keep growing, and it means more people find their way to breakdowns exactly like this one.